The galaxy's most formidable alien alliance had set its sights on Earth. A fleet of colossal ships, made up of the Zephyrians, Drakthar, and Dern, moved silently through the dark reaches of space, each ship brimming with advanced weaponry and technology. These species had been watching humanity for centuries, noting every step of its rapid development. The humans had gone from primitive beings to masters of their own planet in what seemed like the blink of an eye. The alien races, who had spent millennia dominating the stars, had always been cautious of humanity's growth. And now, with Earth on the verge of mastering space travel, they could no longer wait. They had deemed the planet too dangerous, its people too unpredictable. The time had come to eliminate the threat. The alien fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, casting an ominous shadow across the planet. Their ships hovered like vultures, waiting for the right moment to strike. The first wave of their attack began immediately. They disabled Earth's communication satellites, rendering all attempts at contact useless. The skies turned dark with alien ships blocking the sun's light, and the first tremors of panic began to spread across the planet. Nations scrambled to prepare, but their efforts were futile against the sheer power of the alien invaders. For once, humanity was completely outmatched. The alien alliance was ready to launch a full-scale assault. But Earth's greatest minds were not sitting idle. Hidden in secret underground facilities, a team of scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked tirelessly on a plan, a last-ditch effort to defend their home. They knew the situation was dire, and yet there was something about the finality of the moment that gave them a strange sense of calm. They had prepared for this day, even if the rest of humanity had no idea. Unknown to the aliens, Earth was not as defenseless as it seemed. They had spent years developing an advanced energy shield, one that could bend the laws of physics, and a system that could disrupt the alien fleet's technology. But just as they were about to activate their defenses, something strange began to happen. As the alien ships positioned themselves above Earth, the very atmosphere of the planet began to shimmer. It was as if reality itself was beginning to warp. The air crackled with an energy no one had ever seen before. The aliens, who had never encountered anything like this, watched in confusion as their sensors began to flicker. Their weapons, their communication systems, even their ships started to malfunction. Panic spread among the commanders of the fleet as they tried to regain control. But it was too late. In the blink of an eye, Earth went silent. A strange, unnatural stillness hung in the air, and then, without warning, every single human on the planet, from the smallest child to the oldest elder, vanished. Not a single trace of them remained. No bodies, no signals, no signs of life. The streets were empty, the cities silent. Where once there had been bustling human life, now there was nothing. The alien fleet, stunned and confused, searched in vain for any sign of the humans. Their ships hovered over empty cities, scanning the ground for clues, but there was no answer. The humans had disappeared without a trace. The aliens, who had come to destroy humanity, were left baffled. How had this happened? The technology they had seen from Earth was advanced, but not enough to make an entire species vanish. Were the humans hiding? Or had they somehow transcended, moving to another dimension or another plane of existence? No one knew. The alien commanders debated fiercely, some insisting the humans had somehow escaped, while others feared a more terrifying possibility that the humans had vanished because of something they had done. The atmosphere around Earth still shimmered with that strange energy, and nothing the aliens tried seemed to bring them any closer to the truth. As hours turned into days, the fleet remained in position, a vast presence hanging above an empty world. They could not move forward, not until they understood what had happened. In their pursuit of the humans' destruction, they had unwittingly stepped into a mystery far beyond their comprehension. Earth was silent, but the unanswered question hung in the air. Where had the humans gone? And more importantly, would they ever return? The suspense was palpable, and the galaxy held its breath, wondering whether this disappearance was the beginning of something far greater than anyone had ever anticipated. The alien fleet descended upon the empty Earth with a mixture of confusion and growing frustration. Their immense ships, once filled with pride and certainty, now hovered over the deserted cities and silent landscapes, casting long shadows over a world that seemed to have vanished without a trace. Despite the overwhelming size of their forces and the technological superiority they had over every known species in the galaxy, the aliens were at a loss. There were no humans, no signs of life, and no clues to explain what had happened. The planet that had once been a buzzing center of activity was now eerily still, like a stage after the curtain had fallen on a play. They had prepared to conquer Earth, not to search for answers to a riddle they couldn't solve. As the fleet's generals convened in a tense meeting aboard the flagship, tempers began to flare. The disagreement was immediate and loud. The Dern, with their brutish, militaristic nature, called for a full-scale assault on the Earth's surface. The humans are hiding something, and it's time we burn this planet to the ground, they growled, pounding their fists on the table. Destroying everything is the only way to be sure. Their eyes glowed with the promise of violence, their patience worn thin by the endless days of uncertainty. But the Zephyrians, the most intelligent of the alien races, argued for caution. "We don't understand this," said their leader, a tall being whose silken voice carried authority. "Something is wrong. This planet's energy, this anomaly, it's unlike anything we've encountered. If we strike too quickly, we might trigger something we can't control." His words were laced with concern, not fear. The Zephyrians were not used to uncertainty, and they hated it. The Drakthar, cold and calculating, watched the dispute unfold with detached interest. They believed in thorough analysis, but their patience was wearing thin. "We need more data. We cannot afford to make hasty decisions. Let us send our probes down to the surface and study the disturbances." Their commander's voice was sharp, a reminder of their reputation as methodical planners. For hours, the fleet was torn between these opposing views. Some wanted to act with force, believing that this was some trick the humans had orchestrated. Others were hesitant, sensing that there was more at play than a simple disappearing act. The tension was palpable, each race struggling to come to terms with the unknown forces that seemed to be controlling the situation. While the generals bickered, the planet below continued to reveal more mysteries. Strange anomalies started to manifest in the atmosphere. Gravitational disturbances rippled through the air, making even the aliens' sophisticated equipment behave erratically. Moments of intense energy pulsed across the surface, followed by bizarre flickers of light that distorted the sky, making it appear as if the very fabric of space was bending. The laws of physics themselves seemed to be unraveling in strange and unpredictable ways. The aliens' advanced technology, once their greatest advantage, now became a liability. Their sensors began to malfunction when they tried to probe the surface, producing only static and garbled data. Weapon systems that had been finely tuned for centuries started to flicker and fade, unable to connect to targets. Ships that had been poised to strike suddenly found themselves caught in turbulent energy fields, forcing them to retreat or risk damage. It was as if the planet itself was rejecting their presence, pushing them away with an invisible force. Frustration boiled over as more and more strange occurrences unfolded. The Drakthar demanded they unleash their full might, but their efforts only seemed to aggravate the situation. Ships that fired their weapons into the atmosphere were met with explosive feedback that shook the fleet, leaving them with nothing but charred fragments of their own energy blasts. The more they tried to force their way through the disruptions, the more their technology crumbled under the strain. It became clear that the Earth was not a simple world to conquer. It was a puzzle, and one that was defying every rule they had known. The leaders of the fleet could not ignore the rising panic within their ranks. Their once invincible fleet was at the mercy of an unknown force, and no one knew what would happen next. They had come to Earth with a single goal: to crush its inhabitants. But now they were tangled in a web of strange, shifting energies and mysterious forces that no one could explain. They had underestimated humanity, and in doing so, they had stumbled into something far more dangerous than they had imagined. Suspicion turned to fear, and the once proud alliance of alien races began to realize that their dominance over the galaxy might be at risk. They were faced with a dilemma. Would they continue to press on, hoping to unlock the secrets of Earth, or would they retreat, leaving behind a world that had already proven to be their equal? The tension continued to grow, and with every passing moment, it became clearer. The fate of the fleet, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. As the alien fleet remained frozen above Earth, desperately searching for any trace of humanity, something far deeper and more ancient was unfolding in a hidden corner of existence. The humans hadn't simply vanished. They had been transported to a place beyond time and space, a dimension known only to those who could comprehend its vastness, the Legacy Realm. This was a sanctuary, a place prepared eons ago by humanity's ancient ancestors, a race of beings who had once roamed the stars and shaped the cosmos. Long before the galaxy knew of Earth, these early humans had spread across the universe, building empires that stretched beyond the limits of known space. But as their power grew, so did the fear of their own destructive potential. Their technologies had advanced so far that they could bend the laws of physics, reshape entire planets, and even manipulate time itself. Their creations were magnificent, but they were also dangerous. Fearing that their civilization would eventually consume itself in its own ambition, the ancient humans made a monumental decision. They created the Legacy Realm, a secret dimension beyond the boundaries of the universe. This was a place of safety, hidden from all prying eyes, where time flowed differently and reality could be shaped at will. It was a sanctuary where the dangers of their universe could not reach them, and only those deemed worthy could enter. The rest of humanity, those still on Earth, had been left behind in the physical universe, living out their lives unaware of the true extent of their potential. Now, as the modern humans disappeared from Earth, they were pulled into the very same realm their ancestors had once retreated to. The transition was instantaneous, a blinding flash of light followed by a strange stillness. When they opened their eyes, they found themselves standing on a strange new world, one that was both familiar and alien. The air shimmered with energy, and the sky was not the sky they knew, but something far grander, filled with floating islands and brilliant streams of light that defied the laws of physics. It was a place where the impossible was the norm, and the laws of nature bent and twisted in ways the humans couldn't yet understand. As they took in the unfamiliar surroundings, they were met by the beings who had once been their ancestors. These ancient humans had not aged, nor had they lost the vigor of their prime. They greeted the newcomers with open arms, their eyes glowing with a strange, otherworldly light. They were the last remnants of an ancient, forgotten race, the ones who had fled the corrupting influences of the galaxy, leaving behind their former empire and taking refuge in this hidden realm. These ancestors had long since evolved beyond the physical limitations of the body and had mastered powers that no modern human could comprehend. The ancient humans shared the secrets of their past, explaining how Earth had been but a mere fragment of their true potential. They revealed that humanity had once been capable of incredible feats, of warping reality itself, of traveling through time, of creating entire worlds with a single thought. But fearing the consequences of such power, they had chosen to retreat into this safe haven, leaving behind their earlier forms to live out their lives in isolation. The modern humans were told that they had not disappeared by accident, but that they had been chosen to unlock this forgotten legacy and ascend to a level of existence beyond their wildest dreams. As the humans absorbed the ancient wisdom, they felt an overwhelming sense of awe and purpose. The knowledge they were receiving wasn't just a collection of forgotten history, it was the key to their future. They were told that the power to shape reality itself now resided within them, hidden deep in their consciousness, waiting to be awakened. With this newfound understanding, they realized that they were no longer simply the people they once were. They were not just warriors or survivors, but beings with the potential to change the very fabric of the universe. The ancestors urged them to embrace this power, to master the forces that had once been beyond their reach, for the galaxy would soon need them. The alien fleet surrounding Earth was only a symptom of a much larger challenge that lay ahead. The humans' true purpose, they were told, had always been to protect the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as guardians. The time had come for them to rise, to step into their legacy, and to wield the power that had been passed down through the ages. As the words sank in, the humans felt a surge of energy course through them, a connection to the very fabric of reality itself. They were no longer just part of the universe. They were its creators, its shapers, the answers to the mysteries of the galaxy. The knowledge of their ancestors and the path forward were all within their grasp. Earth had always been just the beginning. What lay ahead was far greater. Days passed, then weeks, as the alien fleet continued to hover above Earth, still baffled by the disappearance of its inhabitants. They had searched every corner of the planet, scouring its surface for any trace of the humans, but they found nothing. The planet remained silent, still, and lifeless, as though humanity had never existed. The alien alliance was growing impatient, their unity strained by the mystery of Earth's sudden vanishing. Their power, once overwhelming, was now tempered by a creeping uncertainty. What had happened to the humans? Had they escaped? Had they transcended their physical forms, or was this some elaborate trap? Every theory they entertained only led to more questions, and no answers came close to making sense. Unbeknownst to the alien fleet, however, the humans were not gone. They were far from it. In the strange hidden dimension known as the Legacy Realm, the humans were awakening to a power they had never before known. Their ancestors had left them with the knowledge and capabilities to transcend the physical world, to manipulate the fabric of reality itself. The transition was not immediate. At first, the humans struggled to understand the extent of their new abilities, but as they worked together, piecing together the ancient wisdom, they began to unlock the full potential of their minds and bodies. The first breakthrough came when they discovered how to shape energy itself. No longer bound by the physical limitations of their previous forms, they were able to craft advanced technologies, ships, weapons, and tools that defied the laws of science as the aliens knew them. What had once taken years of research and development could now be accomplished in moments. The humans were creating constructs of pure energy, powerful and elegant, capable of altering the very fabric of space around them. They were no longer building machines. They were becoming the machines, shaping matter and energy with their thoughts. But this newfound power came with a deeper understanding. The humans were not simply altering their surroundings. They were in tune with the universe, on a level that went beyond technology. They had become one with space and time, able to manipulate the flow of events and bend the rules of reality to their will. It was a gift passed down from their ancestors. And now, with this knowledge, they were prepared to return to the galaxy. The moment of their return was not heralded by loud explosions or aggressive displays of power. Instead, it was marked by a quiet ripple through the fabric of space, a subtle shift in the cosmos. The alien fleet, still in position above the now empty Earth, suddenly felt a disturbance in the void. Space itself seemed to bend, and before the aliens could react, a rift opened in the sky, silent and swift. The rift expanded, and through it, Earth reappeared. But this was not the Earth the aliens had once known. This was a different world, entirely. The planet shimmered with a strange energy, as though it were alive and pulsing with power. The atmosphere radiated with an otherworldly glow, and the very landscape seemed to vibrate with an unseen force. And then, the humans emerged. Their fleet, which had once been made of steel and metal, now consisted of ships formed from pure energy, their shapes constantly shifting and changing, as if they were part of the very fabric of space itself. These ships, once simple vehicles of war, were now manifestations of the humans' transcendence, their every movement a testament to the powers they now wielded. The humans themselves had changed. No longer bound by the limitations of their old bodies, they appeared as beings of light and energy, their forms ethereal and vast. They no longer needed ships or weapons in the way they once had. The very essence of space and time was now at their command, and they could move through it as effortlessly as breathing. The alien fleet, still encircling Earth, could only stare in awe and fear. They had expected a return, but not like this. The humans had become something beyond their comprehension, something far more powerful than any of the alien races had ever imagined. The humans, now at one with the very essence of the universe, spoke through a voice that resonated across the void, not in words, but in thought, reaching out to the alien commanders. They revealed their true nature to the fleet. They had transcended their old forms, becoming beings of pure energy and thought. They had mastered the power to reshape reality, to bend the laws of time and space to their will. They were no longer the fragile beings that had once inhabited Earth. They were the new guardians of the galaxy, destined to shape the future, not as conquerors, but as protectors. The alien fleet was stunned into silence. They had come to destroy Earth, to eliminate humanity as a threat. But now, faced with a power that defied every law of physics and reason, they found themselves powerless. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, an error they would soon regret. The humans were back, and they were no longer bound by the rules that governed the universe. The stage was set for a new era. The galaxy trembled as the alien fleet, once a symbol of unparalleled power, tried to fight back. But it was clear within moments that the humans were no longer the fragile creatures they had once been. The rift in space had torn open a new chapter in the history of the cosmos, and now the humans, with their unimaginable abilities, stood at its center. The alien commanders issued orders, sending wave after wave of their most advanced ships toward the humans, but it was futile. With a single thought, the humans dismantled entire fleets. Alien ships, once the pinnacle of technology, were torn apart as if they were made of paper. Laser blasts, missiles, and energy waves fizzled out before they could even reach their targets, dissipating into nothingness. The alien forces were helpless in the face of such power. The once unified alliance of alien races began to fracture under the weight of fear. Leaders screamed into their comms, desperate for a solution that simply didn't exist. The arrogance they had carried for so long, the belief that their might would crush anything that dared challenge them, had collapsed in an instant. The humans had revealed a power far beyond anything the aliens had ever imagined. The fleet's generals, unable to make sense of what was happening, began to argue in frantic desperation. Some called for retreat, while others, unable to fathom their utter defeat, insisted on continuing the fight. But it was too late. The humans, now one with the fabric of reality itself, were untouchable. In the midst of this chaos, a voice echoed across the vastness of space, not through words, but through thought, a communication that transcended language, reaching every corner of the galaxy. It was the voice of the humans, but it was no longer just the voice of those who had once inhabited Earth. It was the voice of an entire species, ancient and powerful, who had unlocked the true potential of their existence. They issued a simple but powerful warning to the alien fleet: "Never again will you underestimate us." The words reverberated through the minds of every being in the galaxy. There was no room for doubt, no escape from the truth. The humans were not simply survivors of a catastrophic past. They were not just a species that had managed to endure and evolve. They were a force that had existed long before the galaxy's current powers, a force that had chosen to remain hidden until the time was right to return. And now that time had come, the humans did not seek domination or destruction. They were not interested in conquest, nor did they crave power for the sake of power. What they sought, above all else, was to safeguard their future, a future in which they would never again be overlooked or underestimated. They had evolved beyond the petty conflicts of the galaxy, beyond the limits of physical existence. They were now the guardians of their own destiny, and nothing would threaten their place in the universe. As the alien alliance disintegrated, the humans withdrew. They had proven their point. The remnants of the alien fleet limped away, broken and shattered, their unity forever fractured. In the wake of the destruction, the galaxy was left to process the reality of what had just occurred. Earth, once a small and insignificant planet on the edge of the galaxy, had become a symbol of strength and wisdom, a legend that would be whispered across the stars for eons to come. The humans were no longer just a species. They had become a myth, a story told by countless civilizations, a reminder of the dangers of underestimating what lay hidden in the universe. And so, the humans left their mark upon the galaxy. They did not stay to rule or conquer. Instead, they left a message in the stars, visible to all who dared to look. Underestimate us, and you will vanish into the void, just as we did. It was a warning and a promise, one that would echo through the cosmos for all time. The galaxy would never again forget the power of humanity, nor would any civilization dare to challenge them lightly. The price of arrogance had been paid, and it had been steep. The humans had returned, not as conquerors, but as a force that would watch over the galaxy, ensuring that no one would ever forget the lessons of the past.